For today's video, I decided to go over a random monster and got the taer. It's a simple one, so instead, let's go over all player character races from the Unapproachable East supplement. Well, that book is intended for the Forgotten Realms setting, describing such regions of Faerun as Aglarond, Thay, Rashaman, and some others. Many of the races can be used in other settings. For example, I included all of them except for the Star Elves in Karilan, my campaign setting. But enough rambling, let's get to work. The first race is a Star Elf, also known as the Mithril Elf. These elves have retreated to an extraplanar refuge for 2000 years, and only now are slowly coming back to the world that is now unfamiliar to them. Just like most other elves, Star Elves are frail, so I will give them HT-1. They have sharp senses, especially vision, so I will give them Perception +1 and Night Vision 5. Elves also live long, so I will give them Extended Lifespan 3. However, they mature physically almost as quickly as humans, so I will have to compensate Extended Lifespan 3 with Early Maturation 3. Star Elves are said to be strikingly handsome or beautiful by human standards, so let's be bold and give the Star Elves handsome or beautiful for 12 points. This applies to elves, humans, and all other similar races. In terms of mentality, Star Elves are said to be cautious, so I will give them the careful quirk. There is also one supernatural ability possessed by the Star Elves. Between sunset and sunrise, they become able to interact with insubstantial beings. I decided to represent it with Blessed Ghost Weapon, limited by accessibility only at night, -20%. The Blessed advantage has an integrated Divine Power modifier, and thus replacing it with the Magical Power modifier does not change its cost. You might remember that I made a video about converting D&D elves to GURPS in the past, and this time there are some differences, because I often learn something new or find better ways to represent certain features. One of the most significant changes was the Elven Reverie that replaces their sleep. While before I used to treat it as a feature and an immunity to sleep effects, an anonymous poster on TG suggested a much better way that I am using now as well. This is what it looks like. Most elves do not sleep, as members of other common races do. Instead, an elf meditates in a deep trance for 4 hours a day. An elf resting in this fashion gains the same benefit that a human does from 8 hours of sleep. While meditating, an elf dreams, so these dreams are actually mental exercises that have become reflexive through years of practice. The elf is still conscious and aware of his surroundings, but immobile. When an elf is suffering from a disease, poison, or is below 2/3 of his HP, he cannot enter this meditative state and has to sleep normally. I believe that this is an excellent special ability that really makes elves feel unique. This is what the template looks like. But D&D elves are also known to possess another ability that the same anonymous poster statted up. I decided not to put it on the racial template, but have it available for elven characters who would like to improve their racial reverie ability. Elven Emphatic Senses. Some elves develop their innate meditative abilities further, becoming able to share emotions with other elves. When interacting with another elf or half-elf in person, or telepathically communicating with them in the Elven Reverie, an elf with empathic senses can get a feel of their emotional state as per the empathy advantage. The other elf feels this mental intrusion and may resist automatically if they do not want to share their emotions. Additionally, an elf with this ability can communicate with other elves in their reverie as per the telescent advantage, but only if he enters the reverie state himself. Rolls to establish contact are made at +6. This is yet again a very cool and flavorful ability. I really like the Star Elves, but I do not use them in my setting, as they seem to be tied to the Forgotten Realms setting. But anyways, the next race in the book is much more generic, and everyone is probably familiar with it, the gnolls. These humanoid hyenas can be up to 7.5 feet tall, which make them size modifier +1 creatures. They are stronger and tougher than humans, but are less intelligent. The gnolls have thick, furry hides, so let's give them DR1 with tough skin and the fur perk. Gnolls are nocturnal carnivores who do not really care about what and who they eat. Let's give them acute taste and smell too, sharp teeth, restricted diet carnivore, night vision 5, reduced consumption 2 with cast iron stomach, and odious racial habit eats sapient beings. The lifespan of a gnoll changed between editions. In D&D 3.5 they had normal human lifespans, but in 4E they were said to have a much shorter lifespan. I actually do not mind that change, so I will add the short lifespan 1 to the template. In terms of mentality, gnolls are very ill-tempered and lazy. Let's give them bad temper, callous and laziness. Finally, gnolls have a reputation for savagery, so let's give them social stigma savage. You can find this disadvantage in GURPS Dungeon Fantasy 3 the next level. That's a lot of disadvantages, but let's also take a look at GURPS Furries, as it has the crocodile racial template. That is basically an anthropomorphic hyena. Maybe we missed something. First of all, let's add blunt claws to the template. Striking strength 4 for the bites, and unattractive. Now we get the following racial template that costs -16 points total. It can work as a player character race, but there are many mental and social disadvantages that will make interacting with others difficult. Some gnolls may leave their barbaric ways behind, and thus would have to buy off some of their mental disadvantages, which would increase their point value. I should also mention that there is some world building potential that isn't really explored in the published settings, but you might do that in your own game. You probably know that the gnolls worship the demon prince Yi-Nokhu, right? But did you know that they also used to have a racial pantheon of proper deities? Most of them are long gone, but there are two weak remnants left, Gorelick and Refnara, and I believe that you can create pockets of gnolls in your world that still worship these ancient gods. I'll link 3 blog posts in the description that describe Yi-Nokhu, Gorelick and Refnara. Check them out! There is also a sub-race of gnolls called flints. They are honestly uninteresting. They are just slightly stronger and smarter gnolls, and their signature feature is not a racial ability, but a racial weapon, the flint bar. The flint bar is a pair of chain-linked iron bars, so basically iron nunchaku. Just for fun, let's make it in GURPS. First, open up GURPS Fantasy Tech 2, Weapons of Fantasy. There are rules for making full metal weapons. A full metal nunchaku will deal swing +2 crushing damage, cost $100, weigh 4 pounds and require ST 8. Then, since flints are SM+1 creatures, let's scale this weapon up using rules from GURPS Low-Tech Companion 2. An SM+1 flint bar will deal swing +3 crushing damage, cost $225, weigh 9 pounds and require strength 12. The next race is the hagspawn. They are an all-male half-race, spawned from the couplings of human males and all-female hags. The hagspawn inherit some of the worst qualities of their hag parents. They are ugly, selfish and ill-tempered. However, they are also stronger than normal humans, have tough skin and are resistant to magic. While emotionally insecure and ill-tempered, the hagspawn also are very hard-working and focused. let's give them the single-minded advantage. Finally, they also can see in the dark, just like the hag parents, so let's give them infravision. To be honest, I do not find this race interesting at all, and I don't really know how to make them more interesting. I guess it would be possible to lean into the hag heritage and give them some abilities that depend on the exact kind of the hag parent. But I don't know. They just don't seem appealing to me. The hagspawn are not tied to the Forgotten Realms setting, so you can freely use them in your own game worlds. The next race is the spirit folk. The spirit folk are descendant of humans and spirits of nature. Basically, they are something of a plain-touched race. They are uncommon on Faerun, but more widespread in Kara-Tur. Despite all that, they are not tied to the setting. You can use them in your games easily. Unapproachable East describes two sub-races of spirit folk, mountain spirit folk and river spirit folk. However, there are also two other sub-races in Oriental adventures, bamboo spirit folk and sea spirit folk. The spirit folk have some common qualities. They live longer than humans. I'll give them extended lifespan too. Nothing is said about their rate of maturation, but I will also give them early maturation too. They also see in the dark better than humans. I will give them night vision 5. The spirit folk are considered to be good looking. I'll give them the racial attractive appearance. The description also says that the spirit folk are considered to be wise ones by the human populace. So let's give them social regard 1, respected. You know what? I want to give them another advantage that I basically never really use. Spirit empathy, limited with specialized nature spirits. That will give them something unique and flavorful. The rest of the abilities will depend on the sub-race in question. Let's start with the mountain spirit folk. They possess an excellent sense of balance and are adept climbers. I would like to represent balance not by giving them perfect balance or excellent balance, but by giving them terrain adaptation uneven instead. The climbing ability will be just a level of super climbing. Mountain spirit folk can also talk to birds. That's the speak with animals advantage limited with magical and specialized birds. Finally, I want to give them a perk, pressure tolerant lungs, thin. This will make them even better adapted to living in the mountains. The river spirit folk are adapted to living in water. I gave them amphibious, doesn't breathe gills, and speak underwater. I will not give them pressure support, as I believe that it's not necessary for most rivers. They are adapted to fresh water, so let's give them weakness, immersion in saline water, 1D per 30 minutes. River spirit folk can talk to fish. That's the speak with animals advantage limited with magical and specialized fish. Finally, they are resistant to water spells. In GURPS, I want to represent it as resistant to noxious water effects +3 for 3 points. This covers not only water spells that affect the spirit folk directly, but also similar effects of water powers. This actually is more relevant to the spirit folk, because they are native to Kara-Tur, that is home to various oriental cultures, and such cultures might have elemental chi powers, like the ones in GURPS thaumatology, Chinese elemental powers. The sea spirit folk are very similar to the river spirit folk. They are adapted to aquatic life, but I decided to make them vulnerable to fresh water, even though there is no such weakness in the source material. Sea spirit folk should be able to live deeper than the river spirit folk, so I will give them 1 level of pressure support. Unlike the river spirit folk, the sea spirit folk are not resistant to water effects, but instead are resistant to fire effects. They also cannot talk to fish. Finally, the sea spirit folk have an innate ability to predict weather, so let's give them the weather sense as a racial skill. The bamboo spirit folk are resistant to earth effects and can speak with any animal. They also get the limited camouflage forest perk and a level of outdoorsman talent. Finally, let's give them terrain adaptation Undergrowth. I actually like the spirit folk a lot, but I wish there was more lore written for them, as there is not much available on this race in D&D 3.0 and 3.5. Maybe there is more information in the previous editions. But anyway, they have some unique abilities, but the templates are on the expensive side. The next race is the taer. These yeti-like savage humanoids live in the icebound north, where they raid civilized folk for cattle, food, or even people to eat. The taers are not tied to the Forgotten Realms setting. They also exist in Greyhawk and may exist in your game world with no problem. The taer are human-sized but very strong and tough. Also, they are quite dumb. I decided to give them Strength +3, IQ -2, Health +2 and Will and Perception +2. They are covered in thick fur. Let's give them the Fur perk, DR2 with Flexible and Partial, does not protect face, and Temperature Tolerance 3 to cold. They have innate resistance to cold. Let's give them DR5 against cold attacks and a vulnerability to fire. They can enter a bestial rage, even at will, so let's also give them the berserk disadvantage. Finally, the taers are adept climbers, so let's give them super climbing 1. The taers are omnivores, but they are known to eat sapient creatures. That's an odious racial habit. Just like many similar races, they have a reputation of being savage. That's social stigma, savage. If we look at the AD&D Monsters Compendium, we will find some extra information. The taers exude a very smelly substance that protects them from cold. Their glands can be harvested to produce potions of cold resistance. Let's give them the bad smell disadvantage. They also have a third eyelid, so let's give them nictitating membrane 1. The taers are moderately interesting. When it comes to cold climates, there is usually not that big of a choice in terms of creatures, especially sapient ones. The taers have an oral folklore and history, and an interesting outlook on life, where they believe themselves to be part of some overarching story, but your characters are unlikely to learn anything about that due to the berserk, isolationist nature of the taers. But still, this is a nice TL0 culture for your game world. The final race of the Unapproachable East is the Volodni. The Volodnis are a human-like race of tree folk. In the ancient times, they used to be demon-worshipping humans, but they renounced their ways and were transformed by Elder Trends into their current form. The Volodnis aren't particularly bright, but are tough. Let's give them IQ -1 and HT +1. They are not made of flesh, but are made of wood. Let's give them injury tolerance homogeneous, limited camouflage forest, temperature tolerance to cold, and vulnerability to fire. They still have sap-like blood, so I won't give them injury tolerance no blood. The Volodni metabolism is weird. They do not need to breathe, so let's give them doesn't breathe. They are immune to poisons and other similar things, so that means immunity to metabolic hazards. They still need to sleep, but they do have less sleep too. Finally, they require water and food, but they need much less of it if they have access to sunlight. So let's give them reduced consumption 3 with accessibility only with daily sunlight. As for their mentality, I think the only disadvantage I have to give them is callous. And that's it. The Volodnis are an interesting race, but I don't think they have ever appeared anywhere outside the Unapproachable East book, so they probably weren't that popular. As a GURPS racial template, the Volodni is on the expensive side, and doesn't provide that many interesting abilities. The best parts of the template are the immunity to metabolic hazards and injury tolerance, but those are passive abilities, and passive abilities, as a rule, are less exciting than active abilities. But anyway, this video is already much longer than I expected it to be, so thank you for watching, especially if you reach this part of the video, and I'll see you next time.